Won't you be my neighbor? Hello all, Camp Counselor Rob here. Just doing my best to counsel and be counseled at the bar or poolside, whatever it is. That is what bartending is, right? And being a barista. I can't say I do it all the time now, but spent a lot of my years and also receiving a lot of that emotional labor from people. So when you're at the bar, you're at the coffee shop, just remember, tip hard because you are receiving emotional labor. That's true, that's a fact. So here's a good one for you. I do get this question a lot, and I like this question. There's a lot there, which is, well, actually, here's the preface. So I'm at CUYAMA Buckhorn, a fantastic hotel in SoCal, we'll say, just north of Santa Barbara. But it's separated by a huge mountain range. So it's a nice little high desert cove, a really cool, locally run, locally owned hotel that has been buying my spirits and bitters for years. And so I'm here doing some fun stuff with them for the next few weekends. Come see me. The theme in general, and if you know me, you know I like a loose theme that includes a lot of things. Because there's so many rainbows to taste and so many rainbows to offer you. So I do like offering custom, spirit flights, custom dinner pairings, stuff like that, that really just meets the moment, because I'm really sick of monoculture. I'm really sick of corporate food and drink, and I want everything I do, and I want everything you experience within, my control to be special and yours. And so that's what I'm here doing. But one of the theme here is kind of desert grown, and also things that taste good in the desert, right? Well, it's kind of a broad category, but the part of the focus that is zeroed in is plants that are grown with a lot of care in the desert, and then food and beverage that is refreshing, not taxing, not bold, right? I worked at Starbucks for 3 years when I was a kid. Everything's like bold flavor. Oh, this one's bold. And actually, that's all of American food and drink, isn't it? Like our ketchup's bold, full of, I don't know, what's bold? Is it fruit? Is it high fructose corn syrup? Is that what bold is? Bold in wine is like double oaked. Same with whiskey. Like, what's a bold whiskey, right? Well, all right, I won't get off on that tangent, but I think the flavors that taste best in the desert, and I think this has been proven time and time again, those flavors are not bold. They're really graceful and delicate and understated. And there's not a lot of flavor on top of the ingredient, right? So let me say that in a different way. A lot of these bold flavors we know in our American food system and our American drink system, right? Because wine and food, they're all following the same trajectory, really, overall. They're full of these additives and these things that add weight to distract from a plant that wasn't really grown all that carefully. So like a lot of cream and sugar, or a lot of like fake cream and sugar, like corn syrup, whatever it is, a lot of these things, like a Frappuccino, no offense, if you like a blended drink, there's just a better way to do it. But a lot of these things, like, a lot of cream and sugar in your coffee, well, it's probably not the best coffee. Like if you're drinking really good coffee, shout out to Rafael Solis and 4 Barrel. I'm drinking great coffee right here. If you're drinking really good coffee, it doesn't mean you don't want to add a little cream and sugar if that's your vibe, but like think about something, that's really nice, like a really nice coffee. It wouldn't need a lot of mask or a lot of weight on top, right? And when I say weight, often I'm talking about some extra sweetness. So like in a whiskey, like adding a lot of weight would be using a new charred American oak barrel like bourbon distillers do. And actually in the US, with bourbon, we use new barrels every time, every distillation, every batch. We're the only region who does that. The rest of the world is reusing those barrels. And that's what I do. Using a new barrel every time adds a lot of wood sugar and like wood weight. And so I hear this every day, whether I'm talking to y'all on the internet or talking to real ass people right in front of me. Even, before or after they try my spirits, a lot of people will say like, yeah, like bourbon's so heavy. Why is that? It's always like so intense. And then you sort of tease that out. You sort of walk that out. You're like, okay, what does that mean? And often it's just because The corn they're using is the same old monoculture corn that you put in the gas tank in ethanol, or it's in, pharmaceutical grade corn that's just millions and millions of acres, row after row of the same genetically modified thing. It has no flavor inherently. The U.S. economy has stripped out that flavor in favor of quick profits, baby. And so then you have to add a lot of things. When you've taken away the plant flavor, when you don't use plants that have real identity and real genetic flavor, you then find yourself wanting to add fake flavors or like extra flavors on top that distract from what that thing was. Okay, so obviously this is like a broad category, but I'll bring it back. Like, what tastes good in the desert, what tastes good in warm weather is things that are gonna refresh you, right? So like a pisco is a non-oaked brandy made in Peru or Chile, right? So it's really cool, delicious, refreshing, expressive, vibrant. You could call it an eau de vie, or you could call it a brandy. It's a grape distillate that has not touched oak. It's a lot different from a grape distillate, let's say Armagnac or Cognac, categories I've totally vibe with in certain settings. There's obviously a lot of great Cognacs and Armagnacs out there, and there's a lot of crap too. But if you compare those two, you'll see you have Cognac and Armagnac, which is a gold, like brown liquor, right? Because it's touched oak, or they've added like caramel coloring, but that's another thing. And Pisco's clear because they aged it in clay, just like mezcal, right? Just like a lot of really good agave spirits, or really high quality rum. Often you're going to find that to be a clear spirit. So that's kind of, I see a through line between like these bold flavors at Starbucks, these big fucking cheeseburgers at fast food spots, and our whiskeys, our American whiskeys, the whiskeys that the U.S. has deemed, appropriate, just over decades of normalization and frankly millions of dollars of marketing, right? So for me, I actually, because I'm from the desert and because I'm really passionate about trying to like find the vibe, find the mood when I'm taking care of myself and others, I really vibe with this like refreshing thing, right? So when people talk about bourbon is really intense or weighty, first notice that it's aged in a new barrel every time. And you're getting like a tea, you're getting like a lot of wood tannin, wood sugar, and flavor. And not only that, it's a new charred oak barrel. So what does that mean? It's charred, it has charcoal. It's like a Brita filter, right? So getting pretty nerdy here, that's what I do. And if you're watching this, you're a nerd too. So I know who I'm rolling with and who I attract and who I don't attract. I attract the nerds. That's what's up. That's what I'm doing. So everything that I want to make for people that and frankly has been well received over years and years. Maybe you're in the summer in New York, kind of same thing, right? Do you really want like that cask strength bourbon? Maybe you would go for like a highball with like some nice cold soda water and a Japanese whiskey or one of my whiskeys that's aged in used oak, and you'd be like, oh, actually, I'm enjoying this grain spirit. So the flavor profile of like, desert food and drink to me is about refreshment and light flavors and delicate flavors, things that make you want to, not drink too much alcohol too quickly per se, because I think it's just hard to do that in the desert. And why are we trying to do that, right? Like just like slowly enjoy, lighter things. So the real meat of this topic though, which I find really, really fun and really fascinating, and I'm endlessly learning new things about this topic, is why should one grow things in the desert? Should we grow things at all in the desert? Like, okay, good question, because there's not a lot of water going around in the desert. Well, don't tell that to the Arizona government or Meta with all their servers in Phoenix using all that water. Here I am using that myself. But there is not a ton of water in the West because of human choices, right? Because of all sorts of things that I try to learn about all the time. I'm no expert, but we need to be careful with our water, right? So to me, food and drink should get that first dibs on our water. I think golf courses can get in line. I think a lot of things can get in line before we decide to, grow really nice plants in the desert. So why grow in the desert though? Okay, there's the obvious one. People live in the desert. Okay, great. That's obvious. Love that. Okay, we can all agree to that. People live there, so we should feed them. Yeah, I love that. Furthermore, there are some interesting things. So there is this concept of sort of like maintaining a desert where if you're there, let's think about how to keep plants going and how to keep plants healthy, right? And help things not become more desertified maybe. I don't know. Sorry. But so coming from my context of being from Southern Arizona is a wildly important and biodiverse place, especially for migrating creatures such as birds and butterflies, right? And because of human, agricultural choices, we've killed off 90% of monarch butterflies that we had since the 90s. 90% since the 90s. And frankly, you can imagine we already killed off a lot before that. So this is a topic that means a lot to me. And the best thing to do is be a part of planting pollinator plants. Like if you love butterflies, start planting milkweeds. Look up what your local milkweeds are, start planting those. The European honeybees are going to be just fine. They have a whole, no disrespect. I love my homies who work with European honeybees. They have enough press and they have enough support and they make delicious honey. So people are don't worry about that. They're gonna be fine. What we should worry about are the little bees and the little butterflies. So if we plant these pollinator plants with our food crops, what we're doing is we're giving organic material to the soil in the desert, which is so rare. That's why most of the trees you see in the desert are legumes. Legumes create their own nitrogen with an exchange with some fungal friendships, some mycelium friendships. And why are they doing that? Nitrogen usually comes from decaying organic material, right? Or turds, or like animals taking shits. Well, the hot desert's very windy, right? And it takes organic material away from the land. So what these wonderful trees, acacias, the acacia family, let's say tepary beans and these are legumes, right? Mesquite, that's a legume tree. There's so many wonderful examples. The Texas laurel, beautiful. They get their own nitrogen from the air via a fungal mycelial relationship because they don't have a lot of organic material being dropped down, touching their roots, okay? That's a necessary resource, nitrogen. But it doesn't have to come from petroleum companies, it doesn't. So the best farms that I've seen in the desert, and then I was able to participate for 4 years, not growing this one, sorry. I was able to participate for 4 years growing some plants of my own in Oracle, Arizona. I worked with some really wonderful people, some Linda Lay, Quentin Branch and family, and then I did the U of A, University of Arizona Master Gardener program. I really got in for about 4 years, just growing a lot of rare seeds out in the desert to then give to farmers to then take this project to the next level and then buy these rare seeds back from farmers, right? So got a lot of perspectives and a lot of fun, experiences in this topic, and I'm really passionate about it. So just given how deserts operate with, the wind and the heat, and especially with climate change more and more, it's really nice to plant things in the desert because you're adding deep down into the soil and helping the foundation of your home be sturdier and not only just more beautiful, because when you plant really nice plants, you get really cool birds and butterflies. Not only that, but you cool down your area, and you make your crop plants even healthier. I mean, if you leave some native pollinators that are going to grow with your corn or with your whatever say you're growing as a farmer or someone who's amateur just trying to learn and experience things, you're gonna see how much it affects you and how much it affects the other plants. This corn, when I grew this corn in Oracle, Arizona, there was a giant datura plant growing with the irrigation of this corn, growing alongside it, and it was thriving. And some people were like, "Oh, you're gonna cut that datura out? It's taking all your water." I'm like, you know what? Actually, no, this datura is hella local. Look at what it's doing. It's bringing all these wonderful, local pollinators into the corn area. And frankly, look, they're dropping their excrement like they're living and dying there, it's a good thing. Like that datura got huge, and the corn plants did really well too. So being in a desert environment and then intentionally growing, an understory, an overstory, all these different things, you would be shocked maybe that if you companion plant, you can grow amazingly in the desert. And then there's really one main thing to talk about besides that. So contributing to your foundation, right? Contributing to the soil in the desert is a good thing, because we don't want it to be we don't want a dust bowl, right? And that's actually where our agricultural economy is always barreling towards. It's always barreling towards dust bowls. That's what our commodity food system does to land. And I love the Southwest. I'd rather it not be a dust bowl. I'd rather it not be fully dust. So growing things in the desert with regenerative practices, where you're putting compost up top, you're putting all kinds of companion plants together. Maybe it's nuanced. A lot of farmers grow a lot of different ways, right? So I'm not an expert. I just like to participate and try to learn and teach when I can. There's a lot of different perspectives and values. So the foundation, right? That's important. That's huge for a desert. Okay, that's like keeping your ground. Keeping your ground intact, because we have all over the desert in the West, we have these big splits happening where we're pumping too much water and there's no plants anymore because we took all those native plants out. So we're just creating dust, and that's really depressing, but it's really overwhelmingly positive and brings a lot of joy, for me at least, when you participate with pollinators and you watch like roots interacting and you watch plants doing better together. It brings you a lot of hope, makes you want to talk to your neighbors more. It brings you all kinds of joy. It's awesome. So furthermore, so that's the foundation. What about up top? Okay, the really wonderful thing about growing grains in the desert, and other things like grapes actually, is that in the desert there's not a lot of mold, right? It's dry. So it's very rare, it happens, but it's very rare that you have, serious mold issues. Like when I've worked in harvest in places that are, wet, say for example, like Santa Cruz Mountains with a lot of fog, a lot of like right on the ocean, a lot of fog. Or shout out to Picanic wines that I helped out last harvest. They work in a very interesting environment that's very wet in the San Juan Islands, up off the coast of Washington. That's a very wet, very foggy, very humid environment. They deal with humidity issues. They deal with a lot of mold issues that you don't see in the desert. You don't see in southern Arizona. You don't see in drier spots. That's an advantage, actually. And there's disadvantages, obviously, but that's one advantage to sort of note and work with. So, for example, a lot of the grains that you would eat in pastas that you purchase, they're made in Italy. A lot of those grains are grown in Arizona or some other desert, actually, because the grains grow up, they don't interact with mold. You can slowly, carefully dry them. And while they're being finished, while they're being cured, they're not interacting. They don't have to compete against all these other microbes because the air is dry, maybe it's windy. So that's a big advantage of growing a successful harvest, right? It's one thing for an area to be able to grow a plant really well, like the soil and the environment to like be wet and grow a plant really well. It's a whole other thing to take that plane that's up in the air and land that plane. And by that, I mean drying the plant out and having them successfully be cured before microbes take over your grapes or your grains, whatever that product is. So growing grains in the desert is not just this aesthetic, wonderful thing. It actually is very helpful, because also we have things to deal with, such as water management and how we compost to keep whatever moisture is in the soil. Like holding on to moisture is paramount, right, in the desert. And when you design a system like some of my awesome farmers do, when you design a system to retain that moisture, you will be very surprised. It's wonderful to grow things in the desert. You need a little bit of shade. You need a plan to retain that moisture. And when you do that, you can have fine produce. So really for me, it's noting like, hey, like, look, this was grown by Arrevelos family farm, actually, well, it's not Douglas. It's right around Douglas. What is that little town? But it's right around Douglas. and Frida, that's what it is. So Aaron and Joan, what's up, y'all? I mean, y'all are busy. I don't think you're watching this video. I mean, you guys my farmers keep real busy. That's what they do. But amazing farmers, you know, next level, multi-generational Mexican family growing one of their heirlooms, right? And there's many heirlooms to the area, and it's shared, right? Like this is the June corn that a lot of people grew and grow in the area. Fewer and fewer grow it, so it's important to back it, because a lot of those farms are being taken over by Monsanto, either by their stray pollen. It's not really stray, but we'll call it stray. By their encroaching pollen that interferes with heirloom corn, or literally they kind of farmers are kind of being so isolated from the market these days that Monsanto eventually buys them out for not very much money, and that farm's gone. So it's very important to support these grains while we have them. This one is, if you pick it, you know, early, it's the elote corn that you would grill when it's still, like, you know, kind of soft, and then as it dries out in the desert, drying out gracefully without a lot of mold. Once it dries out, for, you know, thousands of years, this was the main tortilla corn. So you grind this, or you nixtamalize it, cook it down with an alkali, and then you mill it down, and then you have your classic tortilla corn. This is the main tortilla corn of the Southwest. So this is in the good grain vodka, not it's grown in California, the good grain vodka, but it's still June corn. Then this exact corn is in a lot of the Southwest whiskeys, actually. Really creamy, interesting corn. So yeah, for example, this corn, there's a huge advantage in growing this in the desert, because, like I said, the finalizing, the curing of these grains is paramount. And so when you have a wet corn, you have bugs who are gonna interfere, and also you're gonna have microbes try to take over. And so supporting these farmers in the desert is not just like cool because the desert's cool. The desert is cool. The Southwest is very cool. I love it. I'm very, very happy I'm from Tucson, Arizona. But that being said, it's actually sort of, this should be our emblem. Growing these grains and these plants in the desert, this should be our emblem of the good food and good, like the slow food and slow drink movement. Why? Because we have changing climates everywhere. And so if we know what it's like to grow things without very much water, we're going to be much more suited for whatever future is in front of us. And if you're like me, you don't have a whole lot of faith in humanity, but I love people, and I love being a human. I love our cultures. I love interacting. I think we can do a lot. And so while I, maybe in the objective part of my brain, I don't have a ton of faith in humans, I'm still participating every day, trying to build whatever joy and action around myself, whatever this little one life can do. I believe it. So I think we can do a lot with our world, even if we're like, yeah, wow. So war, violence, famine, disrespect. Yeah, we're doing that human shit again. Okay. But if you start looking at certain things that work, especially, I mean, you see what kind of trip I'm on. Like when you start seeing things that work in the desert and how much there is to it, it's really inspiring. And I think it really helps us be proactive and to lean into beauty, lean into our communities, stuff like this. And so for me, desert grown is really this emblem of resilience. There's a lot more that meets the eye with growing things in the desert, right? Because I mean, it's not a known thing that, that we should grow things in the desert. It's like, sounds fraught. It's only fraught if you choose that. I'm not saying there aren't hard years. Like this guy knows hard years. Like Aaron and Joan know hard years, like where the wind takes out your crop. Or I can think of, Alex King, who runs Red Tree Ranch. They had a lot of wind really early last year, and it took away a lot of their grape flowers. Well, that cut their yield in half. And so I'm not saying that it's all easy. I'm not saying it's easy to grow things in the desert, but eventually with various systems and with diverse planting, and like hedging your bets with diverse plantings, there's still a lot of reason to do it. And so for me, the resilience of it all, the beauty of it all is really quite a metaphor for how to just get through this era of humanity where we're killing ourselves, and a lot of that is about our food. And so this brings me a lot of joy. This brings me a lot of hope, and it keeps me going. And I know that a lot of you are like that too. So growing things in the desert, more than meets the eye.